Good morning, everyone. Welcome to week 11 of the NFL schedule. And Jed and myself are here today. Tommy is off in the meeting, so he won't be able to join us. So, good morning, Jed.
Good morning, Tammy. It's good to see you.
Yeah. What'd you think of the game last night?
That was exciting. If anyone watched, Derrick Henry threw a touchdown pass, so
Yeah.
that was
Henry did
pretty
good. He had
cool.
30 some points yesterday for
Yeah,
fantasy.
well, he ran for one and then he threw for one, so that was pretty good. So I think that was one of the big things. And then of course the other one was Christian Watson. We talked about Christian Watson on the Packers last week. Had 3 touchdowns. Everyone was kind of seeing, was it a flash in the pan? He had 2 touchdowns this game, and we were just talking earlier how I had picked him up in a couple of leagues, but I didn't have the guts to play him. And man, I'm regretting that because he basically had 20 points, so that's pretty impressive.
Yeah. Jed, I was thinking, what, 5 touchdowns in 2 games? I know the Packers. Okay, so let me say this. The Packers have been looking for a wide receiver. They thought it was potentially Lazard. Then they were thinking maybe it's Dobbs, right? They're ending on Watson, and then they're really, I mean, they've always had this history of finding that one receiver who's able to kind of be the one person. The only thing that I was hesitant on when I was looking at waiver pickups this week was, is this guy going to sustain, or is he going to get injured like he's had the last couple of weeks?
Yeah, no, you definitely. I mean, we just have to wait and see. And even in the game, if you look at the stats, he had 4 receptions for 48 yards, whereas Alan Lazard had 5 for 57. Cobb had 6 for 73. So Rodgers is still spreading it out, but the bottom line is when he looks for the touchdown, this guy's speed, Watson's
Yeah.
speed, that's the guy that he's looking to, for that kind of big punch. I honestly think you should even think about Rodgers too. I feel like basically not because they're going to turn around their season, but because there's going to be garbage time points. They're going to be throwing
Yeah.
points, up when they're behind. And so I think Rodgers, I think Watson, and then even Lazard to some extent. But as far as touchdowns, Watson is the guy. I think he could really. I'm really glad I got him because I think going into the playoffs, he could really help a lot of
Oh,
people.
yeah. You know what I get frustrated, and this is fantasy aside. Sometimes I was watching the game last night, right? Rogers is so demonstrative with his frustration. I'm sure the rest of the team is like, what the freak? Like, and that's what I get so frustrated about, especially I feel like in the last few years, both he and Brady, maybe they've just gotten to that point in their careers, but it's like they're letting the emotions and frustration show that they have for other players.
Well, yeah, I don't think there's a problem with being, demonstrative and showing your emotions. The issue is Rogers never takes any blame. Like it's never his fault. It's always everyone else's fault. And
Yeah.
actually, that's what drove me nuts about Manning. I really like Peyton Manning now that he's a commentator. I think he's great, and now that he's out of the league. But when he was playing, I was like so annoyed that he would never take any blame for
Yeah.
bad games or bad losses. And I think it's the same thing with Rogers.
Yeah. So, and then the Titans did good. They went back to Tannehill. Tannehill had 333 yards of passing, but did you see that their offensive coordinator? Did you see the news that came out yesterday?
No, I didn't.
So right after the game, the offensive coordinator who orchestrated this win got arrested for a DUI
Oh,
and was
wow.
bailed out this morning. So they were somewhat making fun of him.
Wow, that's huge. And I was gonna say on the Titan side, Traylon Burks, if you didn't hear, he had 7 receptions for 111 yards. So he's been kind of under the radar. And in Tennessee, they've been trying to figure out who could take, AJ Brown's place. And that was pretty impressive outing. So someone to look at.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what? Titans went back to Tannehill. You've seen the Colts go back to Ryan. Sometimes for some of these teams, like you just go with the player that you know is going to be steady versus trying to take a chance on some of these rookies because the rookies are going to take some time to kind of get about. So,
Yeah, it just depends on if you're fighting for a playoff spot or not. And that's also a good reminder for everyone out there as you're getting close to the playoffs, as you're trying to get into playoff position. Don't forget that there are some teams that they're playing for a draft pick, and there are some teams that are really playing to win. And so I think you got to just remember that it makes a difference in kind of who the starters are going to be.
totally. Running through some news, Kyler Murray, who I know you have on your team, practices Thursday and looks like most likely he will be playing on Sunday. No, actually, they're playing Monday. They're playing Monday again in Mexico against San Francisco.
Yep, exactly. NFL's first game in Mexico. I think that's kind of cool. Or is it the first one, or have they done that before?
No, this is the first. No, they've done it before.
I think they've done it once before. Yeah. So anyway, that's a good game, but the 49ers is pretty good defense. Just right off the bat, the Cardinals are already 8-point underdogs in that game. But yeah, I would love to see Murray back. You're hoping that he and Hopkins can kind of smooth over some of their arguments they had. And I didn't hear if who's the other who's out? So Ertz is out, and then they didn't get Brown back, right? Marquise Brown didn't come back yet.
No, not yet. But Hopkins was held out of practice on Thursday. They're thinking it's not a major thing. I think it's just like a veteran day off. So, yeah. Ezekiel Elliott most likely will practice again on Thursday and will play this week.
So if you had Pollard, you want to sit Pollard. They're playing the Vikings. Vikings coming off that crazy win. If you guys watched the Vikings game, that was literally one of the best games of the year, maybe of the century. I mean, there were some ridiculous point swings there, but the Cowboys are playing the Vikings, and so I expect that to be a pretty good back and forth game. The Cowboys are slight favorites, 1.5 point favorites. But if you had Pollard, you got to decide what you think Zeke is going to eat into. Personally, I would still play him, but everyone has to make that call because he's going to get less carries.
Would you play Zeke?
I would not play Zeke. I would play Pollard, but I would not play Zeke.
Yeah. I think Pollard is going to be fine. You said this a couple of weeks ago. Dalton Schultz is actually doing pretty good. He's actually double digits the last few weeks. Who is it? Cooper? No, not Cooper. Who's a wide receiver? CeeDee Lamb is
CeeDee Lamb.
CeeDee Lamb's doing fine.
Yeah,
I know Dak Prescott's being criticized these days in the news because of the loss last week to Green Bay.
Yeah, he actually didn't have a bad game though in that loss. I mean, there were the interception there that was not good, but the other piece is Hawkinson on the Vikings, the tight end. Haven't really heard much out of him, but that's I kind of figure they gotta. Once they figure out how to use him, his talent has got to come out because they could really use him.
Well, Jefferson essentially is really kind of taking, some people have said that Jefferson is an MVP candidate, but he's essentially the one taking over the offense these days, even more so than Dalvin Cook.
Yeah. Oh, no, definitely. Jefferson has proven, he is top 3, maybe top 1, even though Tyreek Hill has been leading in receptions. It's definitely it's kind of 1A and 1B between those guys.
Yeah. Matthew Stafford is expected to be cleared from his concussion and play this week for the Rams. Do you have anybody on there? Cooper Kupp is gone, right? Are you playing any Rams this week?
Yeah, that's a really tough one. The Rams have been really hurting on offense. It's great to have Stafford back. You'd like to see just kind of how he is out there because even before the injury, he did not look the same. Like he really just didn't have the same kind of downfield presence and felt like the passing game, probably because of the running game, the weakness of the running game is really hurt. But the Rams are playing the Saints. And so the Saints don't have a great defense. This hopefully is a chance for them to right the ship. So if you've got Stafford, right at this point, I don't know about you, I feel like, it's been hard finding quarterbacks. If you've had your main quarterback go down, it's been hard. And so Stafford's not a bad guy to take a chance on.
Yeah, the only problem is, who else today? They've got Van Jefferson and they've got Allen Robinson, right? We've talked about that the last couple of weeks. I do personally think that Van Jefferson will be a better player than Allen Robinson. The other person I've kept on my waiver, Jed, is I've kept Kyren Williams, the backup running back. I know they've got Akers, they've got Henderson, but I do think, right, like especially towards this half of the season, what you're looking for some of these teams who are struggling is they're going to try to play the rookies and they're going to try to play players that normally they don't play because they want to see how well they'll do.
Yeah, exactly. That's definitely the same tack that I've taken, is just trying to see if there's some rookies that you can get and kind of hold on to. I'm thinking in particular about the Pittsburgh running back, Warren. What's his name? Yeah. That's the guy that I've been trying to just kind of hold and see. Yeah, exactly. If he will hit out, in those last couple weeks.
Well, if you think about it from a fantasy standpoint, right? I've always looked at my team at the end of the season versus the beginning of the season. And a lot of times they change because of injuries, because of people that you pick up, right? Like Christian Watson is a great example. Christian Watson was not a player that many people maybe drafted pretty high, but he has the potential of being able to make a big difference for you as you're going into the playoffs. Kadarius Toney.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
I mean, Toney would be a great. Like Hardman is out. Juju Smith-Schuster is most likely going to be out this week because of concussion. Kadarius Toney is going to be the number one wide receiver. And I actually think that this week against the Bills, he's got the potential of going off, solidifying that number one or number two role and helping you with the fantasy playoffs.
Yeah, I like that. I think that's a good call. I was surprised when they put Hardman on the IR. And so, yeah, I think that's a good pickup. And yeah, as you said, at this point in the season, there's always superstars who we weren't expecting. You think about
Like
Walker,
Kyle Walker,
you think about
like Kenneth Walker's over it, right? Yeah.
Yep, exactly. And so it's basically where playing the long game really helps, like looking at the rookies, people you're expecting to ascend. I mean, we talked about Dameon Pierce, although Pierce hasn't been great the last few weeks, but we talked about his ascension. You just had to be patient. And then, eventually it came around. But yeah. And then, of course, Travis Etienne is probably the best one, where first 4 weeks, you didn't feel like you saw too much, started to pick up in week 5. And then by week 6, he really took over and has been great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So like Keenan Allen practiced Thursday. Most likely he'll be out. Are you trusting Keenan Allen this week for the
What
Chargers?
about Mike Williams? Did he practice too?
No, he didn't practice. So most likely,
okay.
I think it's going to be Jordan Palmer and then also Keenan Williams or Keenan Allen. Here's the problem with what do you call it? Palmer is last week. Palmer didn't do too well as that number one receiver because they started focusing in on him.
Well, and you also wonder how Herbert is doing. If he's really like back, is he okay? Is he not? The injury. If he's he just hasn't been right. I feel like the past couple. Well, you've got him and have been playing him. So yeah, I've always liked Keenan Allen. I'd be willing to take a chance on him. And again, the wide receiver position has been tricky. You look at like Michael Pittman has not been as great as we've hoped. Cortland Sutton not been as great as we hope. I mean, there's several disappointments, and so it's not a bad thing to take a shot on Keenan Allen.
Okay, Josh Allen will most likely play. I think the way that they're going to handle him is they're just going to manage his elbow versus just sitting him out. But they did say that the Bills-Browns game is actually going to be played in Detroit this week.
Yeah, because of the snow. I saw that. I don't know if that really helps or hurts anyone, but the Bills are 7.5-point favorites in this game against the Browns. I actually like the Browns in this. I think the Bills are just a little bit beat up, kind of struggling towards the end. They just lost a big emotional game against the Vikings. I think the Bills will win. I just don't think they'll cover the 7.5 points. The other thing I'll mention is what's his name? Donovan Peoples.
Oh, okay. So I saw
Peoples
you
Jones.
picked him up, Donovan Peoples-Jones. Yeah.
Yes, Donovan Peoples-Jones.
Are you preparing for You're preparing for Deshaun Watson to come back? Right?
Well, exactly. It's two things. One, he's been playing quite well the past 3 weeks, double-digit points. He's pretty much the focal point. And the second thing is, yes, when Deshaun Watson comes back, as much as I hate anyone picking up Deshaun Watson and playing, maybe picking up the people he's going to be throwing to. So that's kind of what I was thinking.
Well, Njoku is coming back, right? So he practiced this week. He's been out the last few weeks. The person who I've seen people have been dropping is Kareem Hunt. And he's pretty much similar to A.J. Dillon. I've been surprised how much he's not involved these days in the offense.
Yeah, he's only been getting 3 to 5, 6 carries, like just not enough to really be fantasy relevant. And yeah, I'm not sure why. I mean, honestly, it seems like they've been focusing a little bit more on the passing game, but definitely a talent. So it's been odd. We'll just have to see what happens.
Yeah. So yeah, Njoku is out, but I thought the Peoples-Jones, especially if you're right, people are preparing for Deshaun Watson coming back in 2 weeks. And that's going to be a big game because they're going to be playing Houston in his first game back, which is funny how they decided to pick that game.
Oh, I'm sure that he did that. I'm sure he basically negotiated. That's why he was willing to take 12 games because he wanted to get to the 13th game. Mm-hmm. I actually think he's going to have I think he's going to have some rust coming back. But I think his first week back, because of the revenge factor and all that, he's going to play well. I've said this before. I'm not willing to use him to win a championship. But if you're willing to do that, I do think he'll have points that first week. But after that, I wouldn't be surprised if there's a little bit of a, it's going to take him a little bit of time to get acclimated, get back into it. And so I would just be cautious if you're depending on him as your number one quarterback.
Well, look, he's been out for 2 years. But before all of this stuff happened 2 years ago, I would say he was top 5 quarterback, right?
Oh,
So,
definitely. Yeah, no, he was definitely a top 5 quarterback consistently for the 3-4 years before all this happened. So there's no question the talent is there. And I really can't blame anyone talent wise I mean, he's definitely worth stashing on your
yeah.
bench. For me, like I'm not willing to do that to win.
I mean, as an aside, I think that's one of the things about fantasy, right? Fantasy is not, I mean, yes, it's how you draft, right? You can draft good players, but it's also how you manage the waiver wires as well, too. And I think a lot of people forget about that.
Yeah, it just depends on how competitive your league is. If you're in a very competitive league, then definitely 50% is the draft and then 50% is the waiver wires. But if you're in just kind of a friends and family thing, then pretty much the draft can set you. It's probably like 75% of it. And then people
Yeah,
just aren't
and
paying
then
that
they
much
just leave
attention.
it alone.
Yeah.
And that's the okay. So if you're right, if you're in a friends and family league, sometimes seriously, like if you're active on the waiver wire, no one's touching anything. Like the ones where I'm in, where it's friends and friends, it's like they keep the same players every week in and week out. Like as long as they're happy, as long as they can like figure out who's playing during the week, but they're not picking or dropping players at all.
Yeah, exactly. So you get the cream of the crop. You get all the great waiver wire pickups. And so yeah, it's a different thing. But the bottom line to me, and this is also why I've changed. In the beginning, I used to say like 20 years ago when we first started playing, I'd say, okay, don't draft according to your allegiance. If you're a Bears fan, don't draft a Bears player. Like just always draft the best player. But now I'm like, you know what? You're playing fantasy to have fun. Even if you're having money involved, you're playing it to have fun. If you want to have a certain favorite player, go draft that guy. Like I love drafting guys that I like watching because then it just makes it more fun.
Totally. Yeah. Well, let's see. Oh, going back to the Bills. I know Bills versus Browns. Nyheim Hines has not been doing really well.
No.
And I know that he was really big on your waiver wire pickup the week that he was traded.
Yep.
Like, you think he's going to come out of this funk here?
No, I've dropped him in a couple leagues. I'm disappointed that they haven't really utilized him the way I think he could be because he brings a different skill set. So I've been disappointed, but yeah, no, at this point in the season, I'm not willing to wait any longer. I already dropped him in a couple leagues.
Yeah. Well, let's run through some games this week. Let's start with Bears versus Falcons. Bears, they got Justin Fields, right? Mooney has been doing well. Herbert is out and placed on injured reserve. Do you think a David Montgomery will do well this week?
Yeah, I mean the Falcons have been struggling as well. Not necessarily a great defense, so definitely if you've got Montgomery, you want to play him. The big guy obviously is Cole Kmet. Other than Justin Fields, I think if you can play a Cole Kmet in there, you want to. But Mooney is also a good option. I mean, I expect there to be a lot of points here. They're playing in Atlanta, in a dome. It just should be high scoring. So you want to get all your Bears players in. I think on the Falcons side too, we've talked about this. I think Drake London had a touchdown last weekend, I believe. I would get him back in, even though he's been up and down. Kyle Pitts, I still think it's been really tough. They just have not figured out how to use the guy. So that's the one guy you might want to consider sitting. But Drake London, I'd consider rolling out there.
Yeah, I actually look if you've got a space on your team. I actually can see Drake London is clearly number one, right? There's nobody else out there. I think Mariota and him, in at least the last few weeks, seem to be a little bit more comfortable with each other. He did come out saying this week that he wants to get the ball to Pitts a little bit more, but right now there doesn't seem to be they don't seem to be connecting on the field.
That's a good sign, though. Anytime you hear that in the news, I always like that because then it's like, okay, they've made some chatter, they got to back it up, and so that's not a bad. Maybe you pick him up in like your daily fantasy leagues and take a swing with him. He's not going to cost that much.
Yeah, I do think you're right. I think Fields will do well again. I think a lot of people are just waiting for him to flounder and just kind of. But he's playing against the Falcons. Even though they're close to being number one, they've got a losing record. So I think they'll do fine this week. All right, Eagles versus Colts. We've got Matt Ryan, who's back at quarterback. You got Jeff Saturday, who's going to be the coach for it. Do you think? Oh, I guess one thing of note is A.J. Brown is limited and looks to appear like he was injured in the game on Monday night. What are you expecting to see on this from this game?
Oh, that's terrible. I didn't hear that. I've got him in several leagues. So I don't need to pay attention to that.
They said that you can tell that he was limited after that. Like, I mean, we talked about it. He was limited. He's limited in practice. He was held out this week. So I think he'll play.
Yeah.
How effective he will be is going to be the question.
Yeah, that really explains it because I had a game where I had AJ Brown and the other guy had who's the other wide receiver there? Not Sanders.
Devontae Smith.
Yeah, Devontae. Yeah, from Alabama, Devontae Smith. Yeah. And AJ Brown has been outperforming him week by week, and then all of a sudden the script flipped, and I was like, "What happened?" So I actually lost that matchup, but now it makes sense if he was hurt. I expect Philly should not have lost that game.
No.
They totally gave that game away.
I think they'll come back and win this game against the Colts.
Oh, they're going to crush them, I think. So they're 7-point favorites. I actually would still take the Eagles in this. I think they'll cover. I think the Colts, they threw everything they can to get a win for that first coach, but I think the reality is going to hit. This is not a good Colts team. But still, you play your players. I think Jonathan Taylor, you still play him. If you got Pittman or if you've got Pierce, I think you can still play them. They're going to be behind. They're going to be having to throw the ball. I still think you get those guys in there, but I expect the Eagles to dominate this one.
Paris Campbell has been the leading receiver the last few weeks. Better than Pierce, better than Pittman. Would you? And he's available right now. Would you pick up a Paris Campbell?
Yeah. That was who I meant, not Pierce. Paris Campbell. Yeah. That was the guy I was thinking as the number 2. He definitely has ascended for whatever reason. I don't think he's more talented than Pittman, but he definitely gets more looks. So yeah, no, I would. That's a pretty good waiver wire pickup if you're looking for a wide receiver.
Panthers versus Ravens. Mark Andrews practiced a little bit limited, was not there for scheduled practice in front of the press. Do you think he'll play? And do you want an Isaiah Likely on your bench as a backup?
Yeah, no, I think Likely is a good, solid backup. Has shown that he can step in and perform well. The Ravens, just so you know, are 13-point favorites in this game. That's a pretty big spread. I'm tempted to take the Panthers. The Panthers are starting Baker Mayfield, but I actually am hoping that the guy you traded to me, DJ Moore, will pick up a little bit more with Mayfield in there. So I don't know. 13 points is a lot. I feel like the Panthers can keep it a little bit closer than that. They seem to have rallied a little bit after McCaffrey traded. I feel like they kind of rallied a little bit. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, if you need a tight end, I think Likely is not a bad move.
Yeah. And they seem to have found the running back, right? Deontay Foreman is somebody that you want to keep. DJ Moore, you're hoping that he'll do well with Baker Mayfield at the helm. But Foreman's pretty good. I've been impressed by Foreman.
Yeah, everyone was debating between him and Chuba Hubbard. It seems like Foreman's definitely came out ahead.
Yeah. Gus Edwards is coming back. And I know that Drake had a really good week this week. Who would you play, Gus Edwards or Drake?
Oh, yeah, that's a tough one. I do think Edwards is not a bad play here at all. I expect them to score a lot and to ultimately win. So Edwards is going to get those touchdown carries. But yeah, Kenyon Drake looked good. He's proven that if he gets the carries, he can definitely perform, but it's a tough situation with them splitting. So I'd probably go with Edwards over Kenyon Drake.
All right. So here's an interesting thing. Lions play Giants Sunday morning.
Yep.
I don't know if you read on some of the Chicago airwaves, the discussion this week was, should the Bears pick up Saquon Barkley, who cannot agree on a contract with the Giants right now?
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
No, I don't think so. Personally, I think the trend the last couple of years is just running backs are pretty interchangeable, and you don't want to be spending too much on them given, so personally, I don't. I mean, he looked great. This has just been a great year for him. I'm glad for him coming back from that injury. Anyone who drafted him, you guys did well if you drafted him because nobody thought he was going to perform the way he has. And so, but no, I hope the Bears spend it elsewhere. Hopefully in the line, maybe getting a solid wide receiver.
Well, Montgomery is on his contract here this year too. Most likely, I'm guessing they're going to let him walk. I think they're going to keep Herbert as the number 1 running back. And they've got Ebner. We'll see how he does in the number 2 role. But my guess is they'll promote Herbert as that number 1 running back.
Yeah, which is kind of fun, and actually makes for an interesting question in the keeper league for anyone about.
Because you got Khalil Herbert. Like, are you?
Yeah, probably not. I don't think I'll be able to keep him because the other ones, there's too many others that I want to keep. But it's something you'd have to consider, as we talked about. I think he's going to ascend.
Yeah. So Lions versus Giants. DeAndre Swift practice for the second day in a row. Who do you play, Jamal Williams or DeAndre Swift?
I like Swift, so I mean, I guess I would still roll the dice with him. Yeah, but it's Giants are a good defense. Giants are 3-point favorites in this. Detroit has not been the same. Their offense has just not been the same since the first half when they're scoring so much. I think I would take the Giants in this game.
Yeah. Raiders versus Broncos. Judy is out, right? So you've got Cortland Sutton. You've got that tight end who's doing pretty well. But Russell Wilson still hasn't been consistent. But it's a big game for them.
Yeah, there's a report that came out. You saw that this week on Russell Wilson saying that he has not learned the playbook and the verbiage in Denver and has been reverting back. Like when he's been calling audibles, he's been using old Seattle terms, and so the players don't know what to do, and so it all goes back to the whole use of the armband that he's against. Yeah, it's been a disappointing season if you're a Broncos fan, if you're a Russell Wilson fan. The Broncos are 3-point favorites because it's in Denver. I actually like the Raiders in this game. I think the Raiders have just been really, in a lot of ways, just bad luck in a lot of areas. But I think the Raiders are the superior team, and so I hope to see them win.
I don't know if you were the one. I thought I saw, but I've seen people picking up Frank Morel, who's the backup tight end.
Tight end,
to Darren Waller.
Yeah. No, I dropped Waller. Morel's not a bad move. I've just been so disappointed in that passing game. I thought with Devontae Adams and then with Waller, it would be open. But I guess, I don't know, for whatever reason, defenses have been able to handle that, and they haven't caused the mismatches that we were hoping for.
Yeah. Bengals versus Steelers. Jamar Chase is still out, so you still got the T. Higgins as well as Tyler Boyd and Joe Mixon. Do you think Joe Mixon will come close to his 5 touchdowns in one game that he did?
No, I don't think so, though. You still got to roll him out there. I think, hopefully 1 touchdown. I will say I picked up Tyler Boyd. I saw that Boyd has been on the waivers in a couple leagues, and so I did pick up Tyler Boyd in 1 league, and I think, I expect fireworks here. This is an in-conference, in-division game. Bengals and Steelers know each other well. It's going to be a lot of probably pretty good defense. I don't know how high the scoring will be, but I would be willing to take a chance on a Tyler Boyd.
I will say, I mean, the pundits have been saying that Deontay Johnson is going to start getting better. He's shown some progress the last few weeks. I feel like the Steelers offense have kind of stabilized a little bit. Pickens is doing some more. You're getting some consistent points from Deontay Johnson. We're still not sure what's going on with Najee Harris, but at least they're going to show some semblance of a fight against the Bengals.
Yeah, no, I agree. The other guy is the Bengals tight end, Hurst. I'm playing him.
Hayden Hurst.
Yeah, I'm playing him in a couple leagues too.
Yeah, but I mean, they're just literally trying to survive. I mean, Jamar Chase comes back in 2 weeks, right? So they're hoping that if they can kind of get that momentum when he comes back, they'll be fine going to the playoffs.
Yep.
So, our last, we got 2 more, right? And then the Chiefs versus Chargers. The Chiefs have elevated to be the pick by Vegas to be the ones to go into the Super Bowl. How do you think Pacheco is going to do this week, and how do you think that Kadarius Toney is going to do?
Yeah, I picked up Pacheco. I did not pick up Toney, although I don't know if he was available. But yeah, the Chiefs are 5-point favorites. I expect the Chiefs to win. I think the Chargers are just still, too much injury, trying to figure things out. I like the Chiefs in this game, and I like them to win pretty big. And so I think they're going to score a lot of points. So I think Pacheco, you roll out there. I think Kadarius Toney, you roll out there. I just obviously Mahomes and the tight end. So yeah.
You know how sometimes you just have like a feeling about a certain player? Mine is on Pacheco. Because I was like, he hasn't shown it the last few weeks, but last week, Clyde Edwards-Helaire had like 5 yards of rushing, even offense, right? So I was like, I think they're going to have to, especially with all these guys out, they're going to have to somehow try to rely on the running game a little bit more.
Yeah, no, I like that. I think Pacheco's a good. I think I've grabbed him in at least 1 league.
Yeah, totally. Okay, last one. Arizona versus San Francisco. How do you think they're going to handle this McCaffrey Elijah Mitchell duel?
Yeah, no, I think I'm expecting the 49ers to win this game, to win pretty big. I think, it's coming together for the 49ers. First of all, their defense is really good. It's a top
Mhm.
10 defense. The run game, McCaffrey, as long as he stays healthy, has been everything that they were hoped for. Jimmy G has had the connection with Ayuk. If you've got Ayuk, you definitely want to play him in there. I think Debo Samuel has been a little bit of the one who took a little bit of the hit, with McCaffrey coming in, the ball being spread around, but still, you got to play the guy. He's such a great talent. I mean, I feel like this offense is really coming together. So they're 8-point favorites. I think they're going to cover. So I would
Yeah,
take the 49ers in this one.
yeah. And Mexico City, that might be the NFL's been talking about them being an expansion team at some point.
Yeah, exactly. The air is a little thinner down there. So hopefully they'll be able to throw a lot.
Well, Jet, that wraps up week 11. How are you doing in your fantasy leagues? And do you need a win this week to
Oh, yeah. I have a couple leagues that I need a win. As you know, there's a couple where I'm right at like 4-5 or like 5-5 or something. And like, just trying to eke into that either the sixth playoff spot or the eighth, depending on, how big your league is. And then I've got two leagues where like the Walter White League, I'm in like, I think third, but I think
Okay.
it's a tie. So
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
in a good,
Yeah.
and that's the league that I
That's a
feel
pretty
real.
competitive league, the Walter
Yes.
White League. Yeah.
Yeah. And that one I feel really good. I feel like my team is in a really good spot. I've got the right players. And so I'm just kind of coasting into the playoffs. And then my work league, I've been leading that one from the beginning. And both of those are money leagues. So I'm hoping this year will be a good payout because I didn't do so great last year.
Yeah. All right. Sounds great, Jed. Thanks. See you next
Yeah, it
week.
was good to see you.